So are you a Gen Xer like me? If you're a Gen Xer, regardless of where you're from, there are certain dynamics that we had, certain things that we got used to. But one of the main things that was different with us versus how it is now is actually dating, right? That is completely different. Back then, you would actually be out. If you saw someone you were attracted to her, usually the guy would walk up to her, you'd start a conversation, you'd try to flirt with them. You were trying to get her number on a napkin, right? You were trying to get her number on a napkin. You need to ask the bartender to borrow a pen because you don't want to bring one because you didn't want to seem like you actually were trying to get numbers that night. It was this whole dance that we actually did and we were used to. But in any case, usually we would actually put all of the effort into one, maybe three individuals in an evening because logistically speaking, you couldn't really talk with more than that. You just couldn't do it. And then after you got that, then there was the 3-day rule, right? You had to wait 3 days before you actually called, and it was calling. It wasn't texting, it was actually calling. And then oftentimes when you'd call, she could have a roommate. She was during college, she could actually be at home with her family. She could be at home with her mother, and her mother might answer the phone, her sister might answer the phone. But in any case, there were much more hurdles to actually doing this. And you had to actually have resilience and be able to have the courage to walk up and do that. But nowadays, online dating has changed the dynamic significantly, influenced women and men as well. More disproportionately, women to have an advantage in the sense that women that generally would have been considered average back then have an artificially inflated ego nowadays. So she has so many more options. She has this inflated feeling of self because she's getting validation online constantly. She's constantly being told she's beautiful by guys that see her as just a woman that they would casually hang out with and nothing more. That still conflates with her ego as to what she can get in a relationship, which actually makes it more difficult for a lot of the average guys. If you're an average guy, you have to do significantly more to actually stand out from the rest. You would actually take the initiative to do something. This is completely different now, right? There have been so many changes. Nowadays, you can match with a significant amount of women online instantaneously. Now for the women, that is magnified significantly. They have significantly more options than men do in the current dating arena. Back then, we were generally limited to your local geographic area, meaning generally speaking, I was born in Manhattan and I grew up in Westchester County. The general area to go out with my friends back then, my early 20s, mid 20s, was the city, maybe one of the boroughs, sometimes Westchester, like White Plains, New Rochelle, also Connecticut, like Stamford, Connecticut. That was within the limited area. She's conflating the attention she's getting from the average guys online with her sexual market value, her SMV, basically what makes others attracted to you, what characteristics you have if you're a man or if you're a woman that will draw others towards you, right? The assessment of her self-value in the dating market is conflated with the attention she's getting from random guys online, which makes her feel as though more of a quote catch unquote than she objectively would be. This is not to say that individuals should not have a high level of confidence. This is definitely not to say you should have actually reduced self-esteem. It's not that at all. But it's about understanding objective reality versus your self-value. And those are very different things. Oftentimes they relate, but they're not the same. This is going to require you, especially if you haven't been in the dating market for a decent amount of time, to make adaptations, to actually adjust. Because if you're bringing in that old mindset that you had from when you were dating before, you've been married for 15 years and now you're actually back out in the market again. It's a completely different environment out there. If the last individual you dated, you met about 15 years ago, the way you met her, more likely than not, is not going to be the way you would have met her today or that you're most likely to meet another now. It's not likely. Now, as an individual who actually has dated many women in all of the decades, right, up until now, I've seen these changes. I've had several significant relationships, which I define as relatively long-term and where there's a stronger emotional connection. And I've had several less significant relationships ranging from 3 months, a few weeks, whatever, all over the board. But in any case, choosing to be single now and navigating this dating market with casual dating, I've been able to bridge that gap from being a Gen Xer who was used to dating back then to actually going out now and having casual dates. You can bridge the gap by doing this. Now, me, I'm a 50-year-old man. I just turned 50. But you can, age actually, I realize, is actually one of your biggest benefits when you're actually dating. I know what you're feeling. I know you're actually thinking, if you're a man, you're out there, you're like, listen, I'm like mid-30s. I know mid-30s isn't Gen Xers, but still, this applies to them as well. You're upper 30s, you're in your mid-50s, or even 60. And you're like, how am I going to get back out there? There's not going to be anyone that I want to date. And as men, we generally are attracted to women that are a few years younger than us. That's just the way it is, right? And in your mind, you're likely feeling maybe you don't have what it still takes to actually get out there. You don't have qualities that will actually make her attracted to you. You don't have the ability to do this anymore. And you might say to yourself, you know what, if this was 20 years ago, oh, I would have been out there. I would have talked with her. If this was 20 years ago, this would not have been a problem. But it's not 20 years ago, it's now. And there are things that you can do that will actually take the skills that you acquired over your life and make them attractive to the woman that you actually see that you think is extremely attractive. It will do that. Now, to focus on a couple of the skills that you have that a lot of other men that aren't in their mid upper 30s to 60s have, others that aren't in that category don't necessarily have, is we have life experience. We've done so many different things. I was in Iraq, I was in Jordan, I was in Kuwait, I was doing so many different things in the past. Now, these are interesting. The more time you have, the more experiences you have, but not just having experiences, but developing an understanding of how to navigate those situations, whether it be something good or it's something bad. You've also likely had more time in relationships. Maybe you had a couple of serious relationships, which actually helped you with your communication with a significant other. Maybe you're on the other end of the spectrum and you haven't had any relationships, anything serious yet, and that's fine. But if you can take some of the skills you have, the life experience, the ability to actually deal with situations that you acquired over your time, and you can translate those into objective qualities, which I can tell you how to do, you will actually realize how high your dating market value is, how high your sexual market value is, okay? If you are an average guy, and what I mean by average is literally your physique is average, you have a decent job, assuming that your finances are in order, and you have a basic understanding of communication. I'm not saying that you're good at it, but you have a basic understanding of how to communicate. That is all that you need. And I can actually guarantee you that I can change your dating life around within a quick amount of time. Within a month of us working together, you will actually feel excitement and success in your dating life. Now, this will be done through conversations that we have, me starting out taking an assessment of where you are, what you have, what you've been doing, what you would like to do. Basically a diagnosis, so to speak, of your current situation, how you got there, and where you'd like to be. Then we're going to actually set something up for you online. I would stress that you don't focus specifically on online dating apps, but you use that as one avenue to meet others. So we'll show you how to use that just so you can understand how they work, how they function, and to just basically get a better understanding through that lens. All right, so you get an understanding of dating in general by understanding one of the most current popular ways to date, which is online dating. So even if you don't like it, we're gonna get you on there. And I'm gonna show you exactly how to set it up so that you can actually feel more comfortable on there. But being on there isn't going to be the sole focus. I'm going to show you how to communicate a lot better and a lot more effective so you can embrace the old things that we used to do back then and modify it so that it can actually work in this current market. So I'm going to show you well around how to navigate this new dating market with the skills that we have being a 35-year-old to 60-year-old, anywhere in that age range. We're not going to bring down your standards. We're going to show you what you can do to improve your dating market value. So let's have that call. Let's have that conversation. All right. Details below. Let's do it.